Washington Journal continues.
Welcome back. We're joined now by Sophia Nelson, who's the author of the new book, Redefining Freedom, Thoughts on Bridging Divides and Renewing the American Promise at 250. Welcome to Washington Journal.
It's great to be back.
Well, thank you so much for bringing your book and as well as your expertise. How would you describe our understanding of freedom in the modern age? And here, as you argue in the book, where we've kind of gone off track.
Well, you know, I was inspired by a quote from Coretta Scott King. And she said, in essence, freedom is never truly won. It has to be won again in every generation. And I think what we've seen is a creep in our democratic republic of malaise, apathy, let somebody else do it, it doesn't affect me. And I think our understanding of freedom has become very polarized, very divided, right? We're in camps. We got the right idea over here, they're wrong over there. And so freedom is no longer this collective experience as Jefferson intended it to be in that great sentence of we hold these truths to be self-evident. But I think that we need to re-examine, renew, and redefine freedom for the 21st century, right? I mean, think about it. Our Constitution is an 18th century document, and it's great. I don't want to throw it out. But we need to renew it, and we need to update it, and we need to define freedom, I think, differently and more broadly so it's inclusive of everybody.
You write that freedom has been hollowed out and reduced to a slogan invoked to excuse cruelty and evade accountability.
I think that's right. I think that when I say something or I demean, let's take this, for example, during the presidential debate, the last one about the Haitian immigrants eating cats and dogs, right? Come on. I mean, nobody believes that really happened, but that is done to say these people or those people or others are somehow taking away what is mine and my America and taking my country back. And so we've narrowed freedom down, like I said, to these boxes where we're either ultra-right conservative, we're ultra-left progressive, or we are somewhere the rest of us stuck in the middle, and everybody's got their own version of it. And when we do things that are unacceptable, cruel, and unkind, we say, well, that's my freedom to say that. That's my freedom to treat you that way. That's my freedom to disrespect you. That's not freedom at all.
What kind of freedom do you think we should be aiming for?
I think freedom has responsibility, and I think we've gotten away from that. And when I say to redefine freedom, again, I want to be clear that I'm saying more renew it, change it for our time, and I think that the kind of freedom we need now has a number of parts to it. Economic freedom, personal freedom, shared freedom, and then you have what I call civic freedom. And that is making sure that we all read our documents, understand them. I think we need to get back to civics in this country. Real basic, you know, I'm old enough to remember the Schoolhouse Rock little guy, right? And that was a really helpful, it was a jingle, but it goes to show you how much we've shifted away from really emphasizing the values of civic virtue, which is the underpinning of freedom. You can't have freedom without virtue. And I think now our argument about freedom has become, we're mean. We're really unkind to each other, if I can just say it that way. And I want to see a freedom that's kinder, that's gentler, that's more embracing of everybody, and a freedom that really respects other people who are different from me, and vice versa.
I want to read an excerpt from your book, particularly where you talk about those obligations that accompany freedom. You write, for decades, we have taught ourselves a dangerous myth that liberty is permanent, that the Constitution is immutable, that institutions will protect us automatically, that America, by virtue of age or exceptionalism, is somehow invincible. But freedom is not granite. It is not steel. It is not bulletproof. Freedom is the shoreline, beautiful, beloved, but always vulnerable to the tides. Freedom is fragile not because it is weak, but because it depends on us, our participation, our vigilance, our willingness to speak up, show up, and stand firm when the forces of cynicism tell us not to be a bother. We have been taught to think of liberty as a birthright, but liberty is a behavior, a practice, a commitment. What specifically do you think people can do in their day-to-day lives to achieve this kind of redefined American freedom as you lay it out here?
Well, First of all, we're living exactly what I talk about in that paragraph. We are in an age of cynicism, division, anger, unkindness, incivility. So how do we do this in our day-to-day life? Obviously, right now, people are being affected by high gas prices, by high food prices. The younger generation can't buy a home as I was able to do young. And so the biggest answer to your question is a very simple one. As I started with Coretta's quote, freedom is not guaranteed. It is not static. Freedom is won again in every generation. That being said, when 50% of the population does not vote, when we are apathetic to a degree that we're not engaged in our politics, and yet every day we see a circus show in Congress, right? Whether it's the allegations, people being thrown out, abuse of power, etc. At the end of the day, what is important is that we, the people, understand that this government was set up for the people to be empowered. And when the people become apathetic in their day-to-day life, this thing erodes. It dies. And so in Virginia, as you know, it's going to be interesting to see on Tuesday how the referendum comes out. Now, that's going to be a perfect example of people in their everyday life deciding, will we answer the call to rebut this cynicism of we will just take the seats we need in other legislatures around the country to get the outcome we want? I'm talking about the Republicans. Or,
this is the referendum on redistricting.
Yes,
the state.
Absolutely. And so Virginia, of course, being now a very blue state, the Democrats having complete power, redrew the maps. We have an independent commission. I feel some kind of way about that, but I voted yes. And I voted yes because I want a hard stop on any one party, I don't care which one it is, saying from a national level, because the founders wisely put in the Constitution that elections are decided by the states, not a big national, we tell you what to do. And I think if Virginia votes yes, we will have effectively stopped the power grab. And then in a few years, I think it's 5 years, the map will come back up again, and then I think it goes back to the commission. So it's a sad commentary on where we are, but in our day-to-day lives, you've got to run for local office. You have to show up at the school board. You have to show up at the zoning commission. You have to let your voice be heard with your congressmen and your senators. When you disengage and you say, oh, that has nothing to do with me, I'm doing well, my family's doing well, you're not understanding what freedom is about, because it is a shared responsibility. We are responsible for one another in our system.
A lot of us are addicted to our phones and social media, and many people try to organize that way and use it in a tool in that way. But I want to read an excerpt from your book on the impact of the digital age on freedom. You write, the digital age has cost us attention. It has cost us empathy. It has cost us patience. And increasingly, it is costing us the truth. Scroll through social media and the crisis becomes undeniable. Cruelty has become normal. Anonymous insults and threats are routine. Nuanced conversation is nearly impossible. People are not persuaded, they are pummeled. They are not reasoned with, they are ridiculed. They are not debated, they are destroyed. What do you think is the solution for this? Because we're not putting down our phones.
You know, there's a study that literally was released yesterday. One of the companies paid people, they did this study, either a university or a company or both. I want to say Pew did this, but don't quote me on that. And they basically paid people to staff their phones for 2 weeks. And they watched how cynicism went down, depression went down, anxiety went down, and they were saying, imagine if you do this for a month, or what would happen over a period of 3 months. So I think to the point that I'm making in the book is, and listen, I'm a Gen Xer and I'm looking at a big birthday next year. I don't even want to say which one it is, but I'm about to leave my 50s hint. So, you know, I am old enough to remember a time when we had no telephones. And, you know, I remember being a teenager and the phone hung on the wall in the kitchen. And that's how you communicated. You had to walk over and see your friends. You had to communicate very differently and in person. And so we've lost that connectivity, right, that humanizes us. The things that people say online, Kim, they would never say to your face, right? They wouldn't be able to do it because it would be so disrespectful and so odious that you wouldn't want to talk like that. And so I think what this study shows and what I'm trying to say is that, okay, we're probably not going to give up our phones. I understand that. But we need to be intentional about putting them down several hours a day. We need to take those phones from our teenagers and our kids when they come in and have a conversation and give them a piece of fruit or a snack and talk to them about what's going on and talk to one another about what's going on.
That study looks like it was from Georgetown University, that a 2-week digital detox can reverse years of focus lost to social media. I'm reading from earth.com. A new study has found that blocking mobile internet on smartphones improves mood, mental health, and sustained attention within just 2 weeks.
There it is.
And that was from
Just
Georgetown.
2 weeks. Think about that.
Yeah. Now then, there has been there are many differing opinions on what freedom means,
Sure.
and whether or not we should be involved in different aspects of freedom. I want to talk about Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, who delivered a pretty strong critique of progressivism while making remarks about the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence at the University of Texas Law School on Wednesday. I want to listen to his comments and then get your response.
Progressivism has made many inroads into our system of government and our way of life. It has coexisted uneasily with the principles of the Declaration. Because it is opposed to those principles, it is not possible for the two to coexist forever. Progressivism was not native to America. Wilson and the progressives candidly admitted that they took it from Otto von Bismarck's Germany, whose state-centric society they admired. Progressivism was the first mainstream American political movement, with the possible exception of the pro-slavery reactionaries on the eve of the Civil War, to openly oppose the principles of the Declaration. Progressives strove to undo the Declaration's commitment to equality and natural rights, both of which they denied were self-evident. To Wilson, the unalienable rights of the individual were, quote, a lot of nonsense. Wilson redefined liberty not as a natural right antecedent to the government, but as, quote, the right of those who are governed to adjust government to their own needs and interests. In other words, liberty no longer preceded the government as a gift from God, but was to be enjoyed at the grace of the government. The government, as Wilson reconceived it, would be, quote, beneficent and indispensable.
Justice Thomas there is saying that progressivism is basically a threat to America. Your thoughts?
I know Justice Thomas well, so if he's watching, good morning, Mr. Justice. I disagree with him, however, strongly, and let me tell you why. If you think about Jefferson's refrain, which is what he's talking about, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay, pause there. That's what he's talking about. And then he's talking about the framers, and he's talking about, the Declaration, etc. But Justice Thomas himself is the living embodiment of expansionism and of a progressive constitution. Let me be specific. But for the eradication of Jim Crow, the advent of affirmative action policies, even Loving versus Virginia, 1967, Clarence Thomas couldn't be married to the wife he has. She is a white woman. He is a black man. Without Loving and that progress, they aren't legally allowed to be married, number one. Number two, Justice Thomas has to understand that the very things he pushes back on are why he sits on the Supreme Court. And to not acknowledge that, to hold the seat of Thurgood Marshall, and to not understand that you are the benefactor of a great deal of sacrifice, starting from the Declaration down, where the founders envisioned. Listen, if we had Jefferson and Adams sitting here with Ben Franklin, they'd say to me, Sophia, we knew when we did this that slavery needed to go. We were clear, but we knew that if we did it, the South wouldn't come along with us. So we made that sacrifice. It wasn't a good choice. Our hope, however, was that it would become a more perfect union, that it would expand, that eventually slaves would be freed. They were. That eventually women would vote. They did. And so with every marker of progress we make, the Constitution expands. I'm an expansionist. I believe in a living, breathing Constitution. I don't want to be governed by a document written in 1787 that tells me I'm 3/5 of a person. I want you guys to hear what I said. Check me on this. 3/5 because I'm a slave in 1787. I don't want to be defined that way. I want to be defined in the way I live in 2026. And that's what I'm talking about. Not throwing it out, but renewing, breathing new life into it, and understanding that the founder's vision was always an inclusive, that everyone was given rights by God, but also that they were, as birthright, able and entitled to live free by the law, that equal protection. You can tell I'm a nerd and I professor. Anyway, I'm sorry.
I think most of us here at C-SPAN are nerds.
That's why I love coming here.
All right, if you have questions for Sophia Nelson about her book, Redefining Freedom, Thoughts on Bridging Divides and Renewing the American Promise at 2:50, you can call in Republicans at 202-748-8001, Democrats at 202-748-8000, and Independent at 202-748-8002. We're going to start with Diane in DeSoto, Kansas, on our line for Republicans. Good morning, Diane.
Good morning. I am a conservative, middle of the road type of person. If I look at things objectively, what I see is a broken Congress. It's so broken that I think we need term limits. People I know on the right and the left seem to agree with this. Everybody but Congress. They don't want it, of course. But I would like to know what you think of that, and how do we, the people, make that happen? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I fully agree with you. Have long time been a proponent of term limits. I do think that the system's broken, which is why I wrote the book. I want us to celebrate our semi-quincentennial, but I want us to be sober, and I want us to think about it. As to how we, the people, get it done, you're right. It's difficult. Congress is never going to limit themselves out of jobs that pay them almost $200,000 a year and let them work part-time and do things that you and I could never do at our jobs. So in that instance, because of the way this government is set up and Congress is elected every 2 years, we need to be holding those representatives. We need to have referendums as people. There are ways we can organize at the grassroots. We can work through existing organizations rather, and you see that there's a big move to get rid of the Electoral College, right, to go to a popular vote, and that's been around for a while. Virginia just ratified one of the states that did so, and I think that when you begin to see the movement to move away from the Electoral College, people will have to then really dig into how do we make this government not only more accountable, but every generation we should have fresh blood. And one of the reasons I think our government is so broken, ma'am, is because you have people in Congress, and this isn't ageism. There's no corporation you can go to in the Fortune 500 right now that has an 80-year-old CEO or a 70-year-old CEO. They are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s for a reason, because that is the place of life when we are more vibrant, we have lived some, we are hopefully wiser, and we can engage in a way that is thoughtful and understanding of those behind us and those ahead of us. We need that in our government, and that is sorely missing right now.
All right, next up is Keith in Boulder, Colorado, on our line for Democrats. Good morning, Keith.
Hi, Sophia. As I recall, you are a traditional conservative, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and I am really thrilled by your appearance this morning, and something you said really resonated with me. Freedom requires personal responsibility. And this is really important to me because we blame politicians, left, right, middle, doesn't matter. But they're only a reflection of us. And to tie this with social media, or the rise in social media and technology, people don't realize that they are doing something that they have never been able to do in the history of mankind. Self-publish. And when you self-publish, you have editorial responsibility for what you publish. And this is what has devastated political discourse in the U.S. Now, I will assign some blame to the right, because AM radio did a lot of damage. The demonization of half of America. Let me give you one point on that. Rush Limbaugh started calling the Democratic Party the Democrat Party. Within a short space of time, the entire Republican Party, I don't call them the Republic Party, started adopting Democrat Party instead of Democratic Party. So, we all have responsibility to engage in a civil and responsible way. We can attack Trump. The right can attack Biden. But it should be policy-focused. And that's all I have to say. But that personal responsibility in the civility of our politics is key. So thank you for saying that. And thank you for being a respectful and disciplined political analyst.
Thank you. So before you respond, I'd like to read another excerpt from your book that follows some of those points that Keith was highlighting. You write, "In this era, we are living under a very different tone, one in which absolute personal freedom is celebrated over shared responsibility, in which grievance is sold as patriotism, in which cruelty masquerades as clarity, and in which power has been untethered from character in ways that alarm even those who once championed this style of politics."
Yeah, I think that's right. I think the caller's onto something. Social media has absolutely changed our discourse, and not for the better. You can be anonymous. There are bots. There's so many bots. You don't even know if you're engaging a human being or something else, and that's real, right? Sometimes I'll get into these fights and people are like, "Hey, Sophia, that's like not even a person." So stop. And so I think that this shared responsibility of civility has to be taught. Unfortunately, the generations coming behind Gen X, and that's Y and Z, millennials, Y and Z, they grew up with the devices. That's their norm. And unfortunately, what they're seeing in politics right now, the personal destruction, the animus, the vitriol, the nastiness, that's their norm. And I don't want them to ever believe that is the norm. It is not. What you're seeing now with the president's conduct and his tone and our leaders is awful. It is not who we are. It is not who we should be. And that's why I wanted to write this book, and I dedicated it. I would love to be able to share the dedication, because I dedicated it to young people, to the generation behind us. And it is really important to me that I address you, because I need you to take your country in a different direction, to renew that promise and that purpose, to understand that freedom is our great gift, and it's why we're the envy of the world. At least we used to be before the last 15 months. And so I hope we will work collectively and generationally to get that back.
You're welcome to read it.
So I wanted to share the book dedication because, again, I think this is who we're talking about. For the generations of Americans yet to come, the stewards of our republic, you matter to me. I thought of you with every word I wrote. Go forward, and when your life is past the middle, as mine is now, may you look back over the winding path behind you, knowing you did your part too. Keep a more perfect union alive. May you have lived with courage, acted with conscience, and preserve the enduring promise that all are created equal, endowed with the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Next up is James in Ypsilanti, Michigan, on our line for independence. Good morning, James.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
I belong to the new movement, the new generation of from 35 to 40, and I was following Clarence Thomas, Supreme Court Justice, and I believe in what he said is good, because the progressives, what progressives have done, like Cortez and Omar, they let these immigrants in here. I'm a black American. My ancestors built this country, okay? And for them to let these immigrants in, and Joe Biden, I think it was politically wrong, okay? So what our organization is doing, which we got over 1 million FBA, foundational Black Americans, we're going to take this country back. And we know all the immigrants in the Congress. We know what they're all about, and they know that we know they're against us. So it's going to end, okay? Now, a lot of them,
James, what specifically have members of Congress who are immigrants done to make you feel like they're against Black Americans?
Because, number one, when they get in office, they looking out for where they come from and the people where they come from, like the Somalians.
Okay, I think we get the idea. Let's have our guest respond.
Obviously, James, I disagree with your point of view vehemently. I'm an African-American woman. I am descended from slaves on both sides of my parentage, both sides. We cannot confuse the transatlantic slave trade with immigration. They're vastly different. Some people were brought here against their will. Others came here seeking hope, seeking a future, seeking a better life for themselves. You know, America has been a beacon. You go back and you look at Ronald Reagan's speeches, you go back and you go all the way back. You will see that the founders talked about it. Most of the founding fathers were from immigrant families out of Europe and other places in Europe. And so to suggest that somehow immigrants have invaded our country or doing harm to our country is just specious and not correct. Illegal immigrants is a different conversation. It has become a very difficult one, I think, in this country, a very divisive one. Presidents Obama, Biden, Bush, Clinton, others all deported people who were illegal in large numbers, but they did so in a way that was respectful of the legal process. It didn't divide the country. There were not ICE officers literally in the street shooting and killing American citizens. And we didn't see that because there wasn't this heated rhetoric that we talked about a few moments ago on social media and otherwise that dehumanizes people. I don't believe there are illegal human beings. My Christian faith does not allow me to think that way about other human beings. I believe that there are people who need to come here the right way, and I hope we work on policies and solutions that move us in that direction, because we can solve this, because we are Americans, and we can solve anything when we put our minds to it.
Phyllis is in Durango, Colorado, on our line for Republicans. Good morning, Phyllis.
Good morning. I called to applaud this young woman. I cannot believe how she put my thoughts into words. We have lost respect, and I'm going to cry. I just love this lady. I hope her book sells to everyone. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, ma'am. You humble me, and I do think that we need to bring respect and civility back. I am all for, let me be clear, I love debate. I love the arena. I like to get in there and mix it up. But we've crossed lines now, like, you know, the character assassination, not just of public figures, but their families get drawn in. Death threats. I've gotten them. Every journalist who's been on this show and otherwise, we all get death threats. We all get vile things said to us, threats to our families. That didn't happen a decade or two ago, definitely not 3 ago. When I first came on this show the first time in 1998, I was a baby, I was in my 20s, and I was a new committee counsel, and it was a different world then. You just didn't have the access to people the way you do now because of devices and social media.
All right, next up is Eric in New York on our line for Democrats. Good morning, Eric.
Hello, ladies. Sophia, you're a breath of fresh air, as that woman explained, and you're singing my song. The idea that people communicate better with more technology is a canard. 10, 11 years ago, I was watching our news feeds du jour, and I said to her, wow, you watch this stuff, and you would think that half this country believes that if the other half dries up and blows away, then we've arrived at some kind of wonderful place. Mm-hmm. And I said, I don't believe that's true. That doesn't seem to be the world I walk around in. So what I did was I proceeded to come up with a personal poll, because I think that our founding fathers, well, I know they did, in order to hash out our Constitution and all the heavy things of the day, they closed themselves in a room and faced each other and discussed it, and were able to glean the nuances, the little bits, the important bits of the differences, and what people communicate in person is comes to the fore when you're in person. And those guys were practiced at it too. So to that point, I set off into our body politic in my daily rounds, just going to the gas station. And whenever I found somebody alone, I did this for 9.5 years. I turned to them and said, "Excuse me, may I ask you for your opinion?" Invariably, they said yes as they pumped the gas or as we rode the elevator, alone now. Do you think most people are nice? I asked them. An innocuous question with what I think has a lot of meat in it.
So, Eric, your field research does sound really fascinating, but I want to make sure we can get to lots of callers. What's your question for Sophia?
With her and face to face. Use the body politic that we have in this. We are an incredible product from our democratic experiment, and we're being tested because of the naysayers who get a lot of traction with their negativity online. Thank you so much.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're circling the same wagon here, that we all agree, and I think it's definitely age-related as well, right? If you grew up before social media and devices, you have a different opinion about human connection and real conversations and how you treat people and what's kind and what isn't. If you're younger, it's harder.
Tony is in Guilderland, New York, on our line for independence. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning.
Just make sure to turn down the volume on your TV, Tony, and then go ahead with your question.
Okay. I totally disagree with the apathy as far as the voter. We have bad people who have taken over the system where they're kidnapping the vote, and they're using it as their own personal agenda to do what they wish to do. It's not that because the voter is being, apathy. I totally do not agree with that. And the second point is, the Supreme Court keeps on going back to the founding fathers. Why isn't that what's relevant nowadays? What's good for the American people, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat? They keep on going back to what? Though that's a different time and a different era. Thank you.
So if I understand you properly, Tony, you're saying that the issue is not voter apathy. It's that when people vote, you think that their power is effectively captured and misused, as your first point?
Yes.
Okay, and then your second point being that the Supreme Court needs to sort of lose its focus on the original document and be more expansive in its interpretation of what is needed for the modern day. Is that what you meant for your second point?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't agree at all that apathy isn't a problem. A republic dies slowly. Look historically. Democracies don't die overnight. They die this slow, painful death. It's like, the frog that you put in the pot when the water's hot, he'll jump out, but if you warm the water up while he's in there, he'll just succumb. That's where we are. When 50% of our people don't participate in our elections, that is apathy. That is a attitude that says, it has been overtaken by the bad people, so what? What's that have to do with me? I think that on the point about the Supreme Court, I was very clear. I'm a expansionist in my view of the Constitution. I think the Supreme Court has proven that stare decisis, the principle of precedent standing, they've blown that out of the water with Roe versus Wade and some of the other decisions. I suspect they'll do the same with the voting rights decision that'll come down probably this summer. And I think that this court has done a lot of wishy-washy kind of, well, 1 minute we're textualists, but for example, this 14th Amendment birthright case will be fascinating to see how they come down. That should be an easy 9-0 decision, because if you believe in the original text, well, clearly you believe in the 14th Amendment. It's one of the most center core amendments to our constitutional process and order. And it'll be interesting to see how they vote. So I think a lot of politics has infected our body politic. Another thing I think we should talk about is money and the influence of money in our politics, because I think maybe that's what he's getting at, in a sense, that even if we vote, the lobbyists, the influence of Citizens United, and that somehow money is speech. Well, if I'm a billionaire, Elon Musk or anyone. I have very different speech from somebody who has no money, and I have more influence. And so I think that these things have broken down our order and made us apathetic. We feel powerless.
Tom is in Chesapeake, Virginia. Our line for Republicans. Good morning, Tom.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I will take issue with switching Virginia districting. So why should us conservatives in the state of Virginia this on the chin for the next, what you said, 5 years?
I think so.
We already have a governor just elected that is out of control, tax-wise, law enforcement-wise, gun enforcement-wise, taxes for everything that under the sun. So maybe you could shed a little light on that. Thank you.
First of all, thank you for your call, and I respect your position. I told you in my core I'm not nuts about it, but I'm looking at the long game and the preservation of our principles of how we do democracy and governing. And the Republicans can, on the one hand, say, as the president and others did, we're going to go rig the vote up in Texas and other places so that we win the midterms, and then get angry when the Democrats, elections have consequences. The Democrats won in Virginia overwhelmingly. They have a supermajority and the governor. So they can do this, but what I love about what they did, sir, is that they put it up for a vote. You have a chance to vote no, and so do Virginians. Virginians may well, we wake up on Wednesday morning and this thing is over. We'll have to see how the voters feel about it. But I'm empathetic to what you're saying, and I thank you for your respectful call.
Diane is in Fort Myers, Florida, on our line for Democrats. Good morning, Diane.
Hello, Sophia.
Hello, good morning.
Thank you so much for what you've done. I cannot wait to read your book. There's so many things that the callers have said before me, but I'll try to be brief. One of them is I'm 64 years old, so I have been around. I think my first election I voted with Ronald Reagan. We are so divisive anymore. When I watch C-SPAN and I see my elected representatives up there, and the way they treat each other, it's just devastating to me. I remember back in the day when there was compromise. There seems to be no compromise. But my main question is, are we not, our Constitution, for one thing, should be dynamic, meaning that it does change. For example, do you have a right to own a gun? I am not one to say you cannot have a gun. I just don't think that guns out there that are for massive shootings should be, when you can get that done in 5 seconds, are you kidding me? Anyway, so my question was about the Supreme Court. How do we expand that court? Because right now, whoever is in power and they can bring forth their nominee for the Supreme Court, how is it always now along party lines just about? I just don't see us ever. And if Trump gets 2 more years and he replaces Alito, it could be massively skewed one side. What would happen if you put in, if a Democrat resigns or dies, God forbid, you can put in another Democrat. He doesn't get to choose. That's just, you're waiting. And then they go to the Senate and they try to get them on the court. They get on the court, again, not mutually. But how can we expand the court so that it's even? It has to be even. And these they have to recognize the fact that we are not living for 250 years ago.
So, Diane, I do want to let Sophia respond to your interesting question.
Sure.
So it's a great question. 3 things. One, the president has the power to expand the court. FDR did it and moved it up to 9 justices. And there have been calls, as you know, as of late to expand the court to model the district courts around the country. So I think there's 13 of the circuits, if you will, around the country. And so instead of having 9, we should have 13 justices. I think that that's something I would like to see Congress and the president work on together. The second thing is, to your point, and I want to be unequivocal about this. The third branch of government, the Article 3 branch, the judicial branch, should be the nonpartisan arbiter. There shouldn't be Republican judges and Democrat judges. There should be impartial, justice blind judges. We need to get back to that. And putting in somebody because they lean your way, whether that's right or left, is not the standard we should use. We should use qualifications, brilliant jurists. I take Justice Earl Warren, who's one of my heroes, but for Earl Warren being appointed to the court by Dwight Eisenhower, he was governor of California, a Republican, but a moderate centrist, you would have called him in his day. That man single-handedly went to every single justice when it came time for Brown versus the Board of Education and said, we need to look at this and we need to get rid of this odious segregation. We need to do it within the confines of the law, and we need to be unanimous. What am I saying? He was a leader. He knew how to lead his fellow justices on an issue of morality, on an issue central to who we say we are as Americans. I want justices like that back. I want justices who don't blow with the wind and use their special privileges when a matter comes before the court. Every justice has different circuits that they're responsible for. This court has done that a lot. It has been the subject of a lot of scorn and contempt, frankly, from writers about how they've moved a very conservative agenda when judges
You're referencing the shadow docket.
Yeah, the shadow docket. And I'm sorry, inside ball, shadow docket. And that's not something we should do. I think we need term limits for justices. I think just like senators have a 6-year and representatives have a 2-year, justices should not have lifetime appointments. 18 years, maybe 24 years. Most Supreme Court justices get appointed probably in their 50s. Maybe it's 40s, now's early. You've got Coney Barrett and Jackson and some others. But they're going to serve on the court theoretically to their 80s, right? If you go by Sandra Day O'Connor and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, that means you have a justice that could be on a court for 40 years or 30 plus years. That's ridiculous. You need to change that, turn that over.
We've got a couple of comments that we received via text for you. This one is from Floyd from Columbia, South Carolina. Sophia, you are a rock star. Fabulous points made this morning. We must take responsibility for our freedom and for our democracy. It is like exercise. You can't achieve it in one day, and if you only do it for one day, it doesn't work. Social media, unfortunately, has brought out the worst in us. Democrat, Republican, and independent alike. We all own it. Unfortunately, it creates a tension before we ever walk outdoors and interact with others. Then, when we engage with others, the discourse is at a higher temperature than it should be. Knowledge and respect are foremost in protecting our freedom and our democracy. Thank you for writing this book. I look forward to reading it soon. Another comment, hello, Auntie Sophia. Thank you for dedicating your book to our youth generation. Good morning, and I'm so proud of you. That's from Christopher in Leesburg, Virginia.
That's my godson.
Oh. Let's hear from Earl in Indiana on our line for Republicans. Good morning, Earl.
Yeah, this lady's on there to sell a book. We got one book that we never talk about. And we talk about laws. We got 10 commandments we're supposed to live by. God doesn't change his.
Earl, Sophia mentioned her Christian faith earlier. Did you have a question for her?
Yeah. What do you think the world's coming to?
All right.
Well, Earl, I couldn't agree with you more that I would love to see us be kinder and to the tenets of the 10 Commandments. However, we are a democratic republic. We are not a theocracy. We have a separation of church and state, and we believe that everybody has a right to have faith, enjoy their faith, or not. You can be an atheist in this country, and that's okay too. But yes, I agree with you that it gets back to that moral and virtuous government that John Adams spoke about. It is essential, and right now, we are not seeing the best of us represented in office. We have men and women alike, tragically, who it's what can I do for my personal gain? How can I demean somebody? You cannot have, and I talk about this a lot in the book, the presidency is bigger than one man or one woman. It is an institution. And what comes from the presidency, that bully pulpit, literally affects policy around the globe. And when the President of the United States demeans female journalists and calls them piggy and tells them to shut up or get out or calls them stupid or dumb, not only is that incredibly sexist and unkind, it's just not the way a president of this country has ever spoken to anybody in a public way. And the fact that we tolerate it and it's just glossed over, oh, that's just the way he is. No, that is not the way he should be in our presidency. And I look forward to a day when we have a president that acts with respect and decorum and treats reporters and respects the First Amendment as well with decorum.
Chris is in Dayton, Ohio, on our line for Democrats. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. I'd like to talk about the 250-year anniversary of our democracy. How can we define democracy or freedom when we continue to go backwards? We're not working towards a more perfect union. It's hard to define. But 250 years ago, we were fighting against a king, a real king. And now, again, 250 years, we are fighting against a wannabe king. But we have a legislature, we have a judicial branch, and the executive branch. And those are the people who are to blame for where we are today. These are the people, instead of, when you go back and read the Declaration of Independence, the framers found 27 arguments against the king. And if you go back and read it in the present day sense, you'll find at least 10 against this present government, the executive branch, the judicial branch, and the legislative branch. So,
I love this caller because I wish I could pull up the section in the book, but I actually dig into this and I go through what King George was accused of and some of the things that the current president and administration is doing. And when you put them side by side, it's a little frightening. And so I think, to your point, we agree that this country has an amazing story. It's a great experiment. I keep going back to old Ben Franklin when asked, what form of government do we have? And he says, a republic, if you can keep it. The question is, at this semi-quincentennial, will we keep it? I am optimistic that we will, that we can. I agree we go forward, we expand, we grow, while holding to the core tenets of our principles of freedom, equality, equanimity, justice, fairness, civility, integrity, honor. It's why we were that, as was said by John, Winthrop or Althorp in the 1600s, about that shining city on a hill, and that's what we should aspire to be. And America was seen as that, the beacon of light to all the world. You know, France is our greatest old friend and ally. England, after we break free and become our own nation, becomes our great ally and friend. The King of England will be here next week with his wife, and they will be here, interestingly, to celebrate this 250th anniversary of breaking free from England. How ironic is that? I say all that to say, have faith. We will get through this, and we do need to focus forward.
Sophia Nelson, thank you so much for joining us here on C-SPAN. Again, the title of her new book is Redefining Freedom, Thoughts on Bridging Divides and Renewing the American Promise at 250. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
I'll also point out that you can find all of C-SPAN's coverage of America at 250 on our website, cspan.org. Now, coming up, we'll have open forum. It's your chance to call in, and we want to hear from you. Our phone lines for Republicans, 202-748-8001. For Democrats, 202-748-8000. And Independents, 202-748-8002. We'll be right back.
Watch America's Book Club, C-SPAN's bold original series. Today, with our guest, three-time Pulitzer Prize finalist, author Alice McDermott, who has written several novels, stories, and essays. Her novel, Absolution, was a New York Times instant bestseller. and named by many publications as one of the best books of 2023. She joined our host, renowned author, and civic leader David Rubenstein.
So when you graduated from college, what did you do?
I took a class my second year at Oswego that was called The Nature of Nonfiction. And it was taught by a retired Air Force colonel, Dr. Paul Briand. And the first assignment that he gave our class was to go out and write an autobiographical essay. So I went back to the dorm and I wrote a 3-page story with a first-person narrator, someone of my age and ilk, but it was entirely made up. None of it had actually happened to me. I made up a story, and I presented it as a piece of nonfiction. And after he had gone through what I had written and corrected my spelling and my grammar and my terrible use of commas, he said, "McDermott, I want to talk to you after class." He said to me when I sheepishly went down at the end of class, "I got bad news for you, kid. You're a writer, and you'll never shake it."
Watch America's Book Club with Alice McDermott. Today at 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern and Pacific, only on C-SPAN.